How do you respond whenever you are angry, frustrated, and disappointed with God? That's the question that we want to answer today on The Beat. Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Alan Parr, and so today I want to take a close look at a well-known Old Testament character named Job who lost everything. He lost his 10 children, he lost his health, he lost his wealth, and I want to give us 4 things that we should consider whenever we are experiencing pain that is incomparable, we don't understand what God is doing in our lives, and we find ourselves angry, frustrated, and disappointed with God. And so the first thing that I would encourage you to do is to release your emotions to God. Job says, if only I knew where to find God, I would go before his court, lay out my case, and present all of my arguments before him. He even says, I looked for God in the east and I couldn't find him. I looked for him in the west and I couldn't find him there. Elsewhere, he even says, cursed is the day that I was even born. So Job was clearly angry with God, not just because of what he was going through, but because it seemed like in the midst of his pain that God was nowhere to be found. One of the most encouraging things about the Bible is that some of God's greatest servants were at one point in their life very angry with God, and yet God was patient with them, God loved them through it, and God blessed their life as a result of it. And so my first encouragement to you today, if you are angry with God, disappointed over something that He's allowing in your life, is first of all, not to feel guilty about it anymore, because God already truly knows how you feel. Release your true emotions and be encouraged to know that you are in good company of people who have been disappointed and angry with God. My second point is to recognize that God very well may be testing you. Job says, I looked east, I looked west, I looked north, I looked south, I looked everywhere, and I could not find God. But he says, I know that His eyes are watching me, and when He tests me, I shall come forth as pure gold. Don't start blaming yourself or trying to figure out why God is allowing you to go through what you're going through. Peter said that these trials will show or prove that your faith is genuine. He says it is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. It very well may be that God is testing you today, and that test is really more for you to see where you really are, because the true temperature of your faith is revealed through tests and trials. And this leads me to my third point, which is to resolve to obey God during your test. Job said, when He tests me, I will come out as pure gold. One of the temptations whenever you are in the midst of a trial is to say, God, this Christian thing does not work. Prayer, going to church, fasting, Bible study, worship, none of this is getting me anywhere. And what ends up happening is we end up making poor decisions. We end up reverting back to a relationship, a habit, or a lifestyle that God has delivered us from. But Job said, I have stayed on God's path. I have followed your ways and not turned aside, and I have not departed from your commands. Elsewhere, he even says, God, even though you slay me, yet will I trust you. And so I'm a firm believer that when we revert backwards, whenever we are frustrated and angry and disappointed with God, that we may actually be prolonging the time of our own test. Finally, whenever you are experiencing life's deepest pains, the most difficult trials and tribulations and tests, I want to encourage you to remind yourself of God's power. In Job chapter 42, we see that God restored Job and actually gave him more than what he had at the beginning. And so sometimes the tendency, whenever we are dealing with difficult situations, is to think that this trial will never end. So I want to encourage you, if you are struggling with anger towards God, to meditate on these stories again and again, and trust that if God was faithful to see each and every one of these people through, that God will be faithful in your life as well. If you've ever found yourself frustrated with God or angry with God, or maybe you know somebody else who's dealing with a real difficult, painful situation, pass this video along to them. If you haven't done so already, feel free to head over to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. For more content, you can also visit my website, www.alanparr.com. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Beat.